Hello again. I'm out here on the side of Stevens Canyon Road. Beautiful road that's open during the summer, closed during the winter due to the snow here in Mount Rainier National Park. I found a beautiful view of Unicorn Peak. I've painted Unicorn Peak before, beautiful little mountain beside Mount Rainier in the Tatoosh Range. Let me show you what I'm thinking. We've got a little spot here set up in some shade for now. The sun is traveling to the west, so I'm going to be in the sun here before long, but it should be okay. I'm going with a 10 by 20 inch oil primed linen panel. And the reason I went with this 1 by 2 wide landscape is because here's the beautiful view I want to paint. I love those reds. Must be some scrubby brush and grass up there turning. Beautiful against the cool grays of the mountain and the cool blue of the sky. So I'm going to crop in something like this. Mostly catch that beautiful Unicorn Peak on the left hand side there, and then some of this one as well, and that beautiful red and green fall harmony. Fall just started, it's late September. The road trip getting here is half the fun. It's a winding mountain road, some deep drop-offs like this. So just a beautiful area to explore. So I'll get set up, got my paints laid out. I'll start with a quick sketch in burnt sienna just to try to settle the composition on the panel, get it sitting where I want to. I'm going to mix up big piles of paint and just try to cover the panel quickly. I have another hike and another painting I want to get done later today, so I don't want to spend too many hours here, a couple hours here. So to cover a big panel, a 10 by 20 inch, I need to use a big brush and not be too finicky with the detail. Just get the big picture down, take some color notes, maybe leave some areas like the foreground unfinished. As always, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe. Alright, I've got the quick composition sketch in there. What's really drawn me to the scene is this almost castle-like backlit mountain. This is all the shadow. I've kind of marked out the shadows and then the line of the foreground, this ridge line, and this distant peak. That shadow, that castle-like Unicorn Peak, backlit, and then this plain with the vibrant oranges and reds of fall, and then there's a band of green here. So those are what are really drawing me to the scene. I want to make sure I capture those as accurately as I can, the values and the color harmony I'm seeing. So I'm going to wash in. I think I'll go with cobalt blue for the sky. It's really a rich sky. It's even toward the horizon, it doesn't get very yellow. It's staying pretty rich and blue. So go with cobalt blue wash, and if that's strong enough, I may just leave that and paint over it as needed later to finish it in the studio. I'll wash in, I think, some ultramarine blue over this burnt sienna for the shadow to establish kind of a cool and warm, some variation in the shadow patterns. There's some beautiful blues, lavenders, beautiful warm browns in all those shadows throughout it. It's really varied here in person. I'll wash in some cad yellow for the warm red fall colors. I'll use some Windsor lemon yellow for the greens across the hill where they're higher value, and I'll use maybe a little bit of burnt sienna to mark the darker greens. Even though it's in the distance, it's a kind of a warm green. Everything has a nice warm fall cast. For the warm gray rock faces, I'll use a little bit of alizarin crimson, mostly washed out. Same thing for over here, and on this distant mountain, all alizarin crimson. And then there's some more of those beautiful fall colors here as well. Even though these are closer, because they're so close to the edge of the picture, I don't want them to be as vibrant. So when I mix up the final colors, I'm going to gray these down somewhat compared to this, which is closer to the middle of the panel. And then for these foreground trees, I think I'll go with cad yellow. Again, just to make them pop forward. May or may not finish those up much. I may leave that for the studio. The greens I'm seeing in these foreground trees, it's a warm yellow green in the sun and a cool grayish warm green for the shadow. So cool, light, and warm shadows for the most part today. Beautiful sunny day. I'm already in the sun, so I'm going to throw a little bit of sunscreen on, and then if it beats down on me too much, if I can start to feel it burning my skin, I'll throw my hoodie on. Alright, there's the turpentine wash-in, and I added a little bit more paint to establish the value pattern and to start to take some color notes. So now I'll start to mix up the true colors I'm seeing in the scene. And I'm gonna go ahead and mix up some color for the sky. The wash just isn't quite capturing what I want. As I look closely, and maybe as the sun is rising, I'm getting a little bit of warmth toward the horizon, maybe just a touch of burnt sienna. Alright, I have some colors mixed up now. I've been mixing the colors using the same colors mainly that I started the wash with. The cobalt blue, a little touch of ultramarine blue, cad red and cad yellow, this Windsor lemon, and then of course ivory black and cold gray to gray it out, and then titanium white. I've been adding liquid where I need to because I want the painting to dry relatively quickly so I can touch it up. And I also just like how liquid behaves. It improves the flow when I'm painting outdoors. So I've got some colors for the sky here, including a very rich cobalt blue, pretty high value, to a warmer grayed out just slightly with a little bit of burnt sienna and a touch of alizarin crimson. Then I've got some colors for the shadow on the peak up there. Cooler and a warmer. I got these backwards from how I normally do it, but that's just the way I put it up there today. Then a more blue and a more warm, a little higher value. Got some colors for those red and orange bushes up there, a little higher value where it's more directly in the sunlight, a little darker value where it's in the shade. Then I got some greens for the distance and a green for the foreground. Again, a rich shadowy green, a mid-tone grayed out green, and then some where the sun's hitting, a more gray and a more yellow. And I can just dip in those with the same brush without cleaning the brush, and it'll help things have soft edges and also have a harmony. And I've got some grays for the rock faces where they're exposed. Reddish, a little lighter value with some blue, and a lighter value yet lighter with some yellow. Alright, so I'll take this rosemary, start out with this number 7 for the sky, and I'll probably just use this same brush for the cliff faces without even cleaning it much, and then I'll move into some different brushes for the mountain. Light's staying pretty consistent. It is rising. I am in the full sun now, which is getting hot, so I'm going to put my hoodie on so I don't get burned. Met some really nice people so far. People stopping and taking a look at what I'm doing. They're really drawn to this scene as well, the beautiful colors. It's always fun to meet people who appreciate the challenges and the beauty of what you're doing and the beauty of nature. Especially people from around the country. I'm taking a step back every so often just to take a look at it from a distance, make sure the proportions look right, make sure the values look right. So far so good. I'm going to keep going. Here are a few tips for painting larger format plein air. This 10 by 20 inch, that's pretty good size for painting outdoors. It's a lot of surface area to cover, so a couple common sense recommendations. Use a big brush. You know, this evergreen I'm using is a 1 inch or so wide, so it covers a lot of ground. You can get a surprising amount of detail with a big brush, especially a flat like this, where you can turn it on the edge to make sharper lines, especially if you keep your brushes in good shape. Another tip is mix up big piles of color. Don't worry about wasting color if you're trying to paint large. If you mix up too small a pile of color, you're going to run out, and then you're going to have to take time to mix up more, which is frustrating, and it's hard to get the color exactly the same, and it just eats up your time. So mix up more than you think you'll need. You can save it, or you can just toss it at the end. You're not wasting that much if you end up covering a large painting. If you can save it, that works out great, because then back in the studio you have that color ready to go to finish the painting off. Another tip is to simplify wherever you can. So instead of trying to mix up lots of different values, lots of different colors within groups, try to force yourself to pick one value, one color for as big a piece of the landscape as you can. So for the green, try to have just one or two greens, and then paint that whole area poster-like without a lot of variation. You can blend and glaze and touch up later in the studio to add some finesse, but capturing it outdoors, really what I'm trying to do when I paint outdoors is to capture the feeling of the scene, the lighting, the season, the color notes. I'm not trying to make beautiful brushwork. I'm not trying to add a lot of detail. Finally, choose an area of the painting, if you need to, that you're going to leave unfinished. Like in this case, the foreground for me is less important than the patterns and the colors on the far mountain. So I'm going to go very quickly on that foreground. Those trees are going to be pretty abstract, just suggested. As long as I have the richness of the color in the light and in the shadow, I'll be happy. I can touch up the painting later in the studio. Well, the light's changed quite a lot. You can see there's some haze moving in as well. And as the sun gets directly overhead, the shadows are changing. I did finish it up. Let me show you the finished painting. Well, here's where it ended up. Yeah, I had fun. Beautiful day. Met some really nice people. I think I captured a nice composition and the beautiful colors of the day. Definitely challenging. Every one of these has its challenges. You may have noticed that as I was painting, I was getting some little bits of hard paint in there, which with the side light, it was really catching those. That's not too big a deal. It happens sometimes when you're painting out of the same paint. After a couple days, it grows a skin, and then you blend the skin in, and it causes some little blobs of hard paint. I can scrape it down lightly after it dries a bit and knock those off. I'll take it back to the studio and take another look at it under some better light. I can tell right now that the colors in that background mountain are just a little too vibrant, so I'll probably need to do a little bit of a glaze, a little wash over the top of that to tone things down, tune some shadows as well, maybe darken up the foreground just a bit more. But yeah, I'm really happy I attempted the scene. The road noise is a little annoying. Sorry, that will probably come through on the video. I've got this 10 by 20 inch oil painting of Unicorn Peak from the edge of Stevens Canyon Road back in my studio now. Just taking a look at it. I'm going to scrape it down using a round cornered palette knife so I don't gouge any of the paint. I just want to remove some of the edges. There's some ridges here, and I'll re-oil it. I'll oil it back in with a little bit of liquid diluted with Gamsol. It's nice and dry. It's been almost 2 months since I painted this. I've been working on other things and haven't had a chance to get back to it yet. So taking a look at it, in general, I like it. I like the composition. It's kind of a different composition for me. Long and narrow. This 1x2 aspect is a little different. I like the pattern of the greens and oranges and reds. And I like how this peak has some majesty. It's pushed back. It looks like it's very tall and very distant. What I don't think is working right now, a couple of these patches of color are just too vibrant. They're jumping out, coming forward much too much. So this warm red patch here especially is really jumping out. This and this are really coming forward, and I want to push them back. I'm going to repaint those areas with a little duller color, less chroma. I think in general I'll go over this orange too. This orange band is just a little too vibrant. I think it's because the blues that they're next to, the blues and greens, are really pumping them up, making them intense. I want to keep a little of that, but I want to knock it down just a bit. I want to correct the drawing here a little. The shadow right here is coming down too far. It's not really reflecting what I see in my reference photo or from my memory. This ridgeline should edge over here. I want to add a little bit of highlight on this slope, make it just a little more interesting. Right now it reads as pretty flat. There's some rock here that is interesting from the reference photo that I want to add. I think as well I want to break this shadow a little bit, maybe add some highlights just to show that it's a rock face, and maybe lighten the value a bit as well. And then there were some nice pine trees closer. I think I want to add one or two over here just to break up this kind of boring corner. I'm not going to go up and cover the mountain. I just want to come up and break this corner and stop the eye from traveling off the panel. I'm going to think about adding one over here as well to stop the eye in this direction as well. So maybe two here and one here. The tree here doesn't really exist in the reference photo I have, but I can invent that. So that's what I'll do. I'll spend as little time as I can on it. I don't like to completely rework these plein air studies. I like to keep them as much intact as I can, but I do want to clean it up. I think it's close to being a really nice painting. So I'll make those changes and I'll show you the end result. Well, here's where it ended up. 10 by 20 inch oil on linen panel. Yeah, I like how it ended up. I added a wash across this hill to push it back just a little bit. Left the sky pretty much as it was. The wash was liquid with just a touch of titanium white and cerulean blue. I corrected this shape here just a bit. Wanted this slope to almost indicate the path. This is actually Stevens Canyon Road. It's a little steeper here in my painting than it is in reality. In reality it's more like this. But I wanted to suggest there was a path up to the top of the mountain to follow. I brought out some highlights here and here just to give the eye some place as a focal point, and kept this shape, the depth of color and the shape there about the same. I added a couple foreground trees just to bring the foreground forward more. Yeah, and that was about it. Very few touch-ups required on this one. As always, thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. I'll see you in the next one. If you'd like to support the channel or to purchase some of my artwork, please visit my website. You can find these plein air paintings under the recent plein air tab. I sell them at a pretty reasonable rate because I consider them practice, and I absolutely love it when people buy my artwork. You can also sign up for my newsletter and get a discount on original art and on prints.